Two and one. This is Addy Ads, YouTube's chosen one. This is Across the Pond with myself and Sam Samworth. Sam, how are you doing in Yorkshire this morning? I'm sorry, this early
This
evening.
afternoon. I'm doing good, mate. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, enjoying the Sunday morning. Pretty quiet here in Oregon on the Western Front. But let's talk about your book, of course, Sam. Unless you have any updates as far as the coronavirus goes in
No,
your
pretty standard at the mate.
area.
So
Okay.
let's talk about some. Let's get away from it, shall we?
Yeah,
For
definitely.
a short while.
So I've been reading your book, continuing to read it, Sam, and there's this excerpt that I wanted to read. It says, attracting new staff is hard enough, so that those they do their best to hold. The prison
Yep.
service is not in the habit of getting rid of folk. The flip side, though, is that when officers do have genuine issues, they get little or no sympathy. It's that macho thing you see, even among women. You mustn't show weakness or feeling. Prison can be a very judgmental environment. HMP Manchester had a reputation for being rammed with hard nuts, not just among the prison population, but screws as well. Pretty soon, though, I realized most of my colleagues weren't physically tough at all. Sometimes I wondered what had made them want the job. Did they think it would be like being a school teacher?
That's right. Yeah. The first bit first, Mr. Adiads. I like that name. It's quite catchy. That.
Oh, thanks, Sam. It's almost as catchy as Sam Samworth.
Yeah, I quite like that too. So first of all, let me tell you, when my course that did the training at Strangeways, I can't remember how many was on the course now. The part of the course that you must pass is the CNR control and restraint. We've already talked a little bit about that. That's where you taught as a 3-officer team to restrain a prisoner. That's either standing or all the incidents I were ever involved in were taken to the floor because it's a lot easier to control people on the floor. Only once did we restrain a prisoner on his feet. Anyway, that is a part of the course that is most important. While we're on the subject, for me, prison officer training, it's antiquated, it's outdated, and it's not fit for purpose. You do 8 weeks, 1 week is your CNR, and then 7 weeks is like classroom work, role play, report writing, homework, and things like this. It's almost like they try and fill those 7 weeks and make it purposeful, like the course is something worthwhile. And believe me, other than your week CNR, the rest is a crock of shit. You can learn all that. You don't need to do homework and tests and role play. Role play is shite because if me and you do role play, yeah, and you're an officer and I'm a prisoner, at no point, well, you might, I don't know, it depends how I come across. Are you going to be fearful that you're going to be assaulted because we're role playing? So it's not real. So for me, prison officer training, the first week, I do the CNR with everyone. So they are qualified to restrain people. And then the remaining 7 weeks, 3 or 4 days of that, they would be on a landing with an officer, learning the job, and maybe 1 day a week in a classroom going through some basics. Get these guys on a landing, train them how to fight, restrain people, and then they can do the job. Yeah. Going back to my course, 3 people on my course failed the CNR. Yeah. They didn't pass the course. They weren't confident. They weren't proficient and they failed. All 3 of those went into the jail with myself as prison officers. So I've just told you that part of the course that is important, you need to pass your CNR. 3 failed and still went into the jail. They don't fail anyone. Once you're on that course, you're going into the jail, whatever. And let me tell you, out of them 3 staff, one left probably after maybe 18 months, yeah. They weren't suitable. it's then problematic for other people, because if you get someone who's not suitable, you know, and not trainable and not interested, then that's a problem for other staff who are trying to mentor and get these people into a job. 2 of them lasted 12 months each. 9 months of that 12 months, they were both on the sick, yeah, with stress. So they only worked 3 months out of 12 months. And do you know what? The prison service did everything to try and retain those 2 people, even though they both failed the course and shouldn't have been there. And they both had 9 months sick out of 12 months. They still, you know, you can work anywhere in the jail. Can we offer you this job? What about this job? They tried their best to hang on to him, which is wrong.
Wow.
You know, fail.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy how much they need workers that bad that even if they do fail the training, which, as you said, is not up to par, they still keep them.
let me tell you another interesting little ditty. So when I was on K-Wing, one of our senior officers was going around asking people something. It was coming up to Christmas, yeah. So I said to him, why didn't you ask me? He says, you're not interested. I says, well, ask me. And what they were after were volunteers to spend 2 weeks in Birmingham. That's 5 nights in a hotel, go down Sunday, come back Friday for 2 weeks. And we were going to the Prison Service Assessment Centre in the Midlands, which was based opposite Winston Green or HMP Birmingham. So I'd already been through that process, obviously in training. And what you do at the assessment centre, you do a little bit of a fitness test, you check your blood pressure and those sort of things. But you also do role play, which I've already mentioned, which is a crock of shite, because, you know, it's not preparing. Someone might dry up, somebody might say the wrong thing, it's not politically correct, and they're not given a chance to become an officer then. Anyway, we did that assessment. So after a very short time, some of the officers were doing the role play, you know, actually being the actors, loosely speaking. And myself, another lad, Jimmy from Strangeways, who were a cracking lad, we got on like an house on fire, me and him. I knew who he was, but before we went down there, I didn't know him. And you get very, very quickly into it, and you can see people. So you have this criteria, yeah, that they have to pass during the role play, questions they have to answer and things like this. Nobody'd pass it. If you did it as is, nobody would pass it. But you can tell if someone's got something about them and they're trying or whatever. So, you know, you get really proficient really quick. And, you know, one of the lads might say, you know, this guy or here or this lass, and you'd know yourself when you did your bit, because what you were doing, you were listening, you had some earphones on, you're watching a little TV as they did the role play.
Okay. And you said, go ahead, Sam. Well, I was just going to say that you said that they haven't really changed from what I read, how they do this training since 2005.
Two lads I know, and I am a good judge of character. They've just done the prison service selection. Now, one of them, I told him he probably won't pass it anyway, because he's an absolute brute. He's massive. He's got some size. You need some lads like that. The prison service and people in power, it's like police. They don't want tough people. You know, they're trying to get away from that. But, you know, sometimes it's nice to have a big lad around. Anyway,
why is that? Why don't they want tough people? And I do agree.
It's image. It's all about image. You know, the police force now, they have tick boxes, don't they? I don't know whether they're the same over there. You have to be politically correct. Equal opportunities. So you have to, like the prison service, every year used to pay massive fines because 7% of officers weren't from ethnic backgrounds. So you imagine that. You've got to employ, Mr. Adiads, 100 officers this year, but 7 have got to be from ethnic backgrounds. What happens if no one applies from an ethnic background? what are you going to do? What if you only get 100 white males go for that job? You know, you should not have to fill boxes. It's a job that not a lot of people want to do.
Yeah.
So why should people from ethnic backgrounds want to do it?
And if they don't meet that quota, they have to pay a fine.
Correct. Yeah. You know, people are saying that you need to employ from this group, like the disabilities or whatever, equal opportunities. And you know, for me, that's all wrong. You employ the best people for the job. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You know, you look at people, you look at the qualities, what they might bring to the job, whether they're trainable, and they're the sort of people you employ. Anyway, we'll go back to the Midlands. So the first week, we were the recruitment was for the Northwest, which is where I lived in Manchester. Yeah, the Northwest is an area that encompasses quite a few prisons, and the pass rate at the end of the week was 54%, and they wanted 50%, so they were happy with that. So 54% of our candidates passed, and the prison survey was happy with that. Yeah. The second week's recruitment was for the Midlands, which is like your Birmingham area where the test centre was. So we got to the Wednesday and they wanted 50% and the pass rate was 22%. The candidates were shocking. Yeah. I don't know where some of these people had come from. It was shocking. So we had a governor, it was a Cockney from London, came in to the centre and he said this in front of us. How it used to work, we do the assessments and then those assessments would be passed over to 3 principal officers. Yeah, they're just below governor level. They're still in uniform. So what they would then do is pick at random some of the people we'd assessed and make sure we were assessing them properly, like a quality control. So what he said to these POs was, in front of us, 22% is not good enough. We want 50%. Pass all the females who've already gone through and failed, and pass everyone from an ethnic background who's already been through and failed. So one of the POs went, hold on a minute, pass all the females and pass everyone from an ethnic background. He went, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. He says, why? He says, I'll go through everyone we've already done and pick the best candidates. He went, no, pick all the females and everyone from an ethnic background. And that's what they had to do. So for me, you know, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to fail. Because I've no doubt it weren't just that fortnight I were there, that the assessment centre operates like that is criminal in itself. Get away from an assessment centre, have a job interview, look at people, look at what they've done, suitability, and employ them on that basis. And not because they're ticking boxes, you know, that sort of thing. It's pointless having an assessment centre if you're just going to ride roughshod over the process. So for me, you know, having been through that and see how they go on and had 3 people on my course fail, it's a joke. You know, the whole process is a joke and it all needs looking at and changing. So there you go.
If so for example, in that same cohort, I don't know if you recall this, that they did pass those people who failed despite that, because of their demographics, basically. Were there also white males, like say a white male failed, would they try to pass him too because they needed workers, or they would fail him?
No, it was specifically females and people from an ethnic background.
Okay.
That is exactly, you know. So people reap what they sow as well. The prison service, the prison service also had what they call fast track promotion, which basically, if you had a degree straight out of uni, I might not get the actual timescales right, but you'll get an idea what I'm saying. You'd spend 6 months as an officer, 6 months as a senior officer, 6 months as a principal officer, 6 months as a governor, and then you'd be a governor. You might have to do some exams in between.
2 years.
So what I'm saying to you is, if you've got a degree in a very short period of time, you could be a manager. Wow. Yeah. I saw lots of people go through that process. Again, they don't fail people. We had some horrendous candidates at Manchester, people who couldn't even talk to people. They talked down at everyone, you know, spoke at people, wouldn't listen. They all passed. And then people now will be prison governors. So again, management for me, prison like engineering should come from within. If you've got a good officer, you know, look at getting these guys up the ranks. The best governors I've worked under have been prison officers, not fast track because they had a degree. Again, you know, it's bananas. Why would you do that? Because the other thing is, in that short period of time, they become a governor. Most of them can't communicate. They have no life skills. They can't even talk to staff. So how are they going to understand a staff prisoner relationship? You know, so in itself, that's very flawed as well. So the whole recruitment, you know, it does want looking at, and the staffing is the important bit. Without staff, you can't reform anything. You need this staff, enough staff to be able to undo all your prisoners when they should be unlocked and deal with incidents and still have enough people to keep those prisoners out. If nobody looks at staffing levels after this COVID, whatever virus, they can have as many reforms or try and improve education or try and do this. It won't work. And they need the right staff. You know, that might be that they try and retain some staff now, because I've worked with people who, after 3 months, if you didn't know, you'd have thought they'd have been a prison officer for 20 years because they just picked it up. I've also worked with people who other staff said they wouldn't make it. And then after a couple of years, you look at them and they're a cracking officer. You know, it's not a normal job. It's not a normal environment. Some people will drop into it. Others, it'll take a good while. But at the moment, all they seem to be recruiting, I don't mean all the recruiting, but the only people that are being employed as officers and turning up for the job or applying for the job are youngsters. By that, I mean under 20, under 22s or whatever.
Wow.
And everyone's reporting that. All the people I talk to at different prisons are just talking about young staff. Now, you know, we were on about this yesterday. When I was sort of 21, I couldn't have done that job. You could have done it if you'd have had experience around you know, like lots of officers did. But there's no experience now. You know, a lot of the experienced staff have left, and the ones that are there are overworked and probably, you know, stressed to the max. So they need to, before they do anything, they need to look at getting enough staff and doing the right training and retaining those staff as well. So
what do you think? Because it seems to me, Sam, that paying officers more would go a long way in solving this problem. What do you think it would take for that to happen? Would it be the public demanding it? Or
no, the public would never demand that. It's never happened in our country, mate. I can't see the rates of pay going up. The only thing that can get better is the conditions and also the retirement age to come down. Can you believe in a job like a prison officer? You know, you're reading the book, you've already got an idea what it's like. You know, there's plenty of programs on American and British, prisons around the world. Can you imagine someone working until they're 68 in that job in order to collect the pension? Now, you know, and I know that people won't be doing that job at 68. A lot of people physically won't be able to do it. You know, arthritis, old age, these sort of things. What they've done for me, though, is they've said, yeah, you can work in that job. You might end up leaving the job at 60 because you can no longer do that job. But we're not going to give you pension till he's 68. It's cruel. It's wrong. You know, it's a physical job. Police can retire still at 60, I think. Firemen, physical job, can still retire at 60. Prison officer, 68. Outrageous. It's just and like I say, no one's going to make it to 68 unless they've got a really cushy desk job. It just means that they can't collect that pension that they've worked for, which is wrong. It's terrible.
That is wrong. And excuse me. It also is dangerous too, because if you do have someone in those positions who can't physically handle themselves and handle dangerous prisoners, right? Dangerous, physically capable prisoners.
Yeah.
It's going to be dangerous for not only that particular officer, but their colleagues as well, and the other prisoners too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't take no working out. However, the public aren't going to change anything, or at least I don't think they will, you know, because the prison officer population is somewhere between maybe 25 and 32,000. It's a very small workforce in this country compared, you know, you look at our NHS, our health service probably employs 2 million people or something like that. It's a massive amount. So small amount of officers, and, you know, obviously prison populations between 80 and 85,000. So I don't honestly see the wages going up. Maybe they could, you know, put a bonus in there which would increase the wage, but they certainly need to look at conditions, staffing, and the pension age. Pension age is outrageous for me.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But I got another question, Sam. We got one of our viewers chipping in here, and she said that she has a neighbor who was a prison officer, but was retired or switched jobs, doesn't say, but refused the offer to go back to work.
They're just sending letters out now.
Yeah. Did you get any, Sam?
Not yet, mate. We can only hope, eh? I bet there's probably a big black cross against my name. Obviously.
Why is that?
One of my friends, here's the thing. One of my friends got finished by the prison service, had to fight for ill health retirement because she was no longer able to do the job. She actually won her case, so she got a pension early and got classed as ill health retirement. She's had a letter offering her job back. Here's the thing. I think she's just under 50. In the contract, it says her contract would be 7.25 hours a month that you'd have to work, and then as many hours overtime as you want. So if you wanted to do 100 hours a week, you could do 100 hours. Wow. That's desperate for me.
Yeah.
They're actually sending letters to people who were retired because they couldn't do the job. By that, I mean not capable physical, not mentally, you know, that not that they weren't a good member of staff, just that the body, arthritis, like I say, all these things, autoimmune diseases, was physically stopping them. So, but they still offered them a job. So that.
And do you think that's primarily because of the pandemic, Sam?
Oh, it will be, yeah. You know, yeah. I've been talking about this on Twitter. There's you know, these people who are for victims and think people should rot in jail. These people have loved ones in jail. These people have families of people who work in jail. I think the prison service itself could, you know, they just need to be putting something out daily. You know, unfortunately, 2 prisoners lost their lives today. The families have been contacted. Everybody else is doing fine. We're working together. You know, we're trying to keep people safe. Just something to let people know. But there's nothing. What you're getting is little bits, little glips of information or whatever. So there you go.
Yeah. Let's talk about, because I think you started off the chapter with this, but you're talking about the prisoners and their penchant for creating alcohol using only water, sugar, and fruit, which is all you need. And this is called hooch.
Yeah. Well, they have various names for it, yeah, but basically it was called hooch. The strongest we ever tested when it was in the private sector, I don't know how they used to test it, but there was a way of testing the strength, was somewhere between 20 and 30%, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, that's like sake, like Japanese sake about in terms of the strength.
Well,
but you actually walked in on, was it three guys, Sam?
Four people. There was a son, his dad, uncle, and another lad who was like a friend or whatever. They actually worked out they drunk somewhere over 20 litres, maybe 23 litres. So, you know, you're looking at what, 30 pints maybe of this stuff. They were in a bad way. One of them actually died, taken to hospital. So, you know, it's not. Hooch used to be a big thing around Christmas time. You give fruit out on the survey. When you're serving meals, you used to give fruit out. So part of the checks as an officer, when you were doing pan spins every day, you know, going in a cell and just doing your routine searching, just very basic searching, you just make sure they didn't have too much fruit. Very inventive, though. They used to hide it everywhere. They'd hide it under your nose, you know, in bins, in the showers, wherever. Very, very clever. At one point, do you know what Ovaltine is?
Yeah,
it's like a hot drink, like hot chocolate.
Yeah, it's like the chocolate powder stuff, right?
Yeah. I think Ovaltine used to have yeast in it. So they used to use that because it got yeast as a fermenting agent to make the hooch. You know, these lads, it's very cliche, but these lads have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to outfox you and think of ways of doing things. But the hooch, nasty, nasty stuff. I've seen some people pretty screwed up on that. Towards the end of my career, saw a lot less of it. You know, we've already talked about your spice and things like that coming in. You know, why are you going to mess about risking getting caught brewing hooch when drugs are aplenty? Especially, you know, and the other thing is, we've said about the spice, you just lose. Have a smoke, it's dinner. Have a smoke, it's tea. Watch a film. Have a smoke, it's next day. Just gets rid of time, like so.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, there's some clever lads in there.
So I had some slang to ask you about, Sam.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if it's slang, but I just don't know what it meant. But you said, despite being only a stroll from Manchester Arena, the neighborhood ain't pretty. Along the main road is a row of shops you might take for a derelict, shuttered, mostly that flog swag. What is flog swag?
Sell contraband. Okay. Believe it or not, right outside the prison gates, there was a few cafes that we used to frequent that were really nice for your dinner, but they had a more appropriate name would be snide, as we say it. Do you ever use that word? So if we were saying snide, like you've got snide t-shirts, they might have the Lacoste logo on, but you know, the basically fake goods.
Okay. I got
you. Right outside, as we used to come out of the prison car park, whichever way you went, yeah, there's all these shops selling all these fake goods, and they used to get raided about maybe once every 6 months by customs and the police. Outside all the shops, you'd have watches, 2 or 3 watches, you know, keeping an eye out, like. So that's what that was, and that was right outside the prison.
Flog swag. Okay. Yeah, I'd never heard that before. That's interesting. Yeah, and you see that when you travel, especially in Europe and southern Italy and tourist hotspots, you know. Yeah, you just see
Turkey,
like
you get a lot of dodgy stuff, don't you? T-shirts and bags and things like
watches that. or whatever it is. Yeah, just the knockoff stuff. Yeah. But it's great, Sam. It's just talking more about your coworkers too. You ended a chapter saying basically what affected you negatively the most was not so much
what I saw and dealt with, but how people treated each other.
Yeah.
Sorry to steal your thunder then.
No, go for it. You know exactly where I was going with that.
Right.
So,
It's like the manager thing. All managers after doing the prison service is support staff. I've said this quite a lot. By the time managers arrive to an incident, that incident will have been dealt with. You might have a senior officer there or something like that, but the officers, more often than not, would deal with an incident. All you want senior officers, principal officers, and managers, governors to do is support you. There was I'll give you for an instance, there was a death in custody, which wasn't pleasant that we were dealing with. And there was a young lad, he was about 26, who was working overtime with myself, There was another guy who was captain. Come in, you little rat. He's our Siamese. He's not allowed outside. Come on.
He's very handsome.
He is. He's a good-looking boy. If he got out, someone would be having him off, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, you pose for your American friends.
What's his name again, Sam?
Captain America.
Captain America. I love it.
The daughter named him. Yeah, okay, that's enough. Anyway, so this young lad, 26, he'd been in the army, and there was another lad who was similar age to me, maybe 50. And those two lads were working overtime on our unit, with us. They weren't actually involved with the death in custody in the handling and dealing it, but they obviously observed it. The young lad, I remember coming out of the cell and seeing him, and a really good SO, Kev, was talking to him. He was obviously in shock. I spoke to him months later. He messaged me on Facebook months later. He said, I've never seen anything like that. I was in shock or whatever, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, is there? It was a horrendous thing to deal with. It was an horrendous. This is the missus.
No worries, Sam.
Hello?
I'll take you out for a sec. So we are live with Sam Samworth here on Across the Pond. This is Addy Ads, Atticus Skywalker, YouTube's chosen one. Let's see who we got in the chat now. Vanda, hi guys, it's your groupie from Scotland. Hope you're all well. Hey Vanda. And Sean Burns, aka Linda. If you guys don't want me to put your comments on the screen, just let me know. Otherwise, I can definitely do that. But thank you all for tuning in. I am currently reading Sam's book right now on my Books app on my computer. And I just ordered the paperback version as well, which I actually haven't let Sam know that yet. So he will be excited to learn that I bought his book. How are you, Addy? I'm good, A Power. How are you doing? Thanks for tuning in, guys. Sam is on the phone with his missus, and he will be back shortly. We have been talking about prison reform in the United Kingdom based off of Sam's experience and career as a prison officer. Talking about the training that prison officers go through and how it's insufficient in Sam's eyes to deal with being in the prison system effectively. And I do want to talk about Sam's boss that he had, whose name was Birdie, who definitely had an influence on him. Seems like he was a good supervisor. Tuning in from Australia. Good stream, mate. Appreciate it, brother. Australia, I've never been there. I would like to go. I met some Australian girls in Berlin. Yeah, when I was there like 2 years ago. I think those are the only Australians I ever met. Yeah, I was at the Berlin Wall. We were all waiting in line to get a picture, I think. But yeah, shout out to all my Australians. I didn't even know what time it is there. But let me pull some of these comments up. Shout out to Astro Train. Marie, how's it going? Sean, aka Linda. Vanda. And if you guys have any questions for Sam, please do add those in the comments and we can direct those to Sam. He's more than willing to answer any and all questions we have. Also, I am going on Dr. Paul Cottrell's show later tonight. If anybody tuning in doesn't know who that is, I've done a few collaborations with him so far on the coronavirus pandemic. He has been a part of our coronavirus roundtable of scientists that I've been doing. And he wants to have me on his channel later tonight. So he will be posting that. Basically, it's going to be tomorrow for all of us, but especially for the Englanders. It'll be pretty early in the morning, East Coast time tomorrow that'll be posted. But we're recording later this evening. So be on the lookout for that. And we did just do our scientist roundtable last night with Doc Cooey, Jay Cooey, and Doc McCairn as well. And I am also collaborating with Doc McCairn at some point this week. I don't know if we're going to do it on my channel or his channel. Actually, it might be both, to be honest. We'll probably just post them on both so people can have both. So yeah, be on the lookout for that, guys, because that is something that people have been really enjoying. We do get a lot of feedback on those roundtables because of the intense interest that is on the coronavirus pandemic right now. I like your work. How old are you? How old do you think I am, A-Power? But I want to read a little bit from Sam's book, if that is okay with you guys. So this is chapter 5, Prison Song. When I arrived at Strangeways in 2005, I'd already met a few of the prisoners because some of them had been at Forest Bank. When you're arrested in Greater Manchester, it dictates the prison you go to, Manchester or Salford. You're off to Strangeways, public sector. If it's Bolton or Oldham or Wigan, you get Forest Bank, private sector. So the cons could and did swap about. 5 of us were brand new from the training center. We looked very official in our uniforms. Black trousers, white shirt, and numbered epaulets. So that when a prisoner is identifying you, he doesn't have to say, that 6 foot, 17 stone bald twat. MR A37 is friendlier. And ladies and gentlemen, guess who's back? It is Sam.
Sorry about that, mate.
No worries, brother.
Right, where were we? So, yeah. So the lad, they sent him home. He was off a couple of weeks in shock. The other lad who'd been in the job about 30 odd years, I spoke to him a couple of months later. He was in shock. It affected him. The staff that were on there, there were a load of staff come on that unit, yeah, who shouldn't have been there. For me, an incident like that, it should have been limited to the staff who were on the unit, plus the people who needed to be there from healthcare, manager, under manager, governor, whoever. There was a load of officers in the office. The lad next door who's in shock, who's white, sort of jeering, you know, what's up with that dickhead? Needs to grow a set and all that. It's only a con, you know, this sort of macho bollocks. It was just a really, really bad day, made worse by dickheads with this macho image. And I never went along with that. My manager sent me outside for 5 minutes with one of my other colleagues because I was going to blow my stack. It was just people behaving unprofessionally and so badly. It was disgusting. And if I can refer to the death in custody previously in the private sector, yeah, we had a lad who hung himself on the wing. The first manager on shift stuck an officer at the end of the wing where the gate was with a pad and said, nobody comes on here, yeah, unless they've got my permission. And that's how it operated. You know, we give all the prisoners a letter under the door, let them know what had happened. You You know, just in general, it was dealt with so much more professionally. I remember we had a hot debrief. So maybe half an hour after this incident, we had a couple of POs, and in the room, in the actual cell dealing with this death in custody, Mr. Adiads, was 2 officers and 3 of the nursing staff. Yeah. So the hot debrief for me should have been a manager governor on scene, the 5 staff who were there. Maybe one of the lads had gone home at this point, maybe the older lad who was on overtime, and that's it. There was 30 people in this room, laughing, joking, having brews. I were absolutely seething me. So they went round asking him whether anyone had got anything to say. Some of the people there had come on because there'd been an alarm bell and they were supposed to be working elsewhere, and they would just use it as a bit of a break. Do you know what I mean? I was furious. It made a bad day so much worse. So,
And what basically set all of this off was the death of the prisoner.
yeah. I mean, there's a couple of lads who, after they read the book, spoke about me, who actually came on because of the alarm bell and left straight away because there was no need for anyone to be there. You know, only the people dealing with it, and obviously a manager and that sort of thing. And that, for me, you know, some geezer actually messaged me, said, I've read your book. I've realized that you're like an antagonist. You're saying that you had all this conflict. He said, that's because you're like a dickhead or whatever. And, you know, you didn't know how to deal with people, which is all my conflicts. I've said this to you before, mate. If I had my own prisoners, no problem. Violent, mentally unwell, never had no problems. Never caused me stress. It was people, how they treat other people in the job, staff and managers, how they treat other officers and other staff. You know, it
Not
was
just the
just
prisoners.
no, the prisoners were never a problem. I never had no bother with them. Do you know what I mean? Some were problematic. Don't get me wrong. However, no, not at all. And that for me, it made bad situations worse. Don't get me wrong. When I first started on K-Wing at Strangeways, we had Bertie Bassett and a couple of SOs working around him. The management team on there were fantastic, super supportive. It was great, you know. Our managers on there, if there was an incident, their concerns make sure that all staff were all right and it was dealt with in a proper manner. So it wasn't everyone, but there was a lot of people in there who were just thoughtless. And like I said, this macho image, you know, you can't be stressed, or you can't help anyone or do anything. You know, you can't show weakness, you can't show emotion, that sort of thing. So yeah. I never went along with that.
I think that's good that that message is coming from you, Sam, because you are a macho guy, you're a big guy, and I think when people do think of prison officers, they think of someone who looks like you. And as we said before, that's not the case.
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm a very cliched look, am I not?
Yeah, you are. And to hear that from you, that it's okay to, I guess, show that vulnerability or express it in a healthy way, not necessarily in front of the prisoners per se, but
it's also doing what's right. You know, if someone's entitled something, you know, misbehaving. I remember one of the last ever bits of conflict with staff I had. I was on K-Wing working overtime. It was probably in my last week before I got injured. And the manager on that wing, who I knew quite well, I was working on the twos landing. There was a couple of lads who were on basic regime, which basically means they were on punishment because they were misbehaving. So it was about 3 o'clock, and the manager says, I've got to go. Now, on that wing at that time, they were locking the prisoners up at 4. So he said to me, at 4 o'clock, them 2 prisoners in there, I want you to let them have a 2-minute phone call each. Yeah. So I said, why aren't you telling the other lad who worked on that wing? You know, he was one of his officers. He says, because he won't let them have a phone call. I promised them one, you know. Unfortunately, I've got to get off. So I would like you to let these lads have that phone call. So at 4 o'clock, all the wings locked up, 3 landings, yeah? So I says to this lad I'm working with, I'm giving them a 2-minute phone call each. So he started effing and jeffing. You're not doing anything. Don't come on my wing telling me what to do. I said, your SO has told me to give him a phone call, so that's what I'm going to do. So one of these kids started kicking his door because he'd been promised something. That's another thing with prisoners. If you promise them something, make sure you deliver. So I went to the door. There's numerous staff watching me now, maybe 10 staff. Yeah. So eyes on me. Who's this dickhead? Who's this Yorkshire twat on our wing? That sort of thing. So I went to the door and I just said to these lads, I said, right, just listen a minute before you say anything. You're getting 2 minutes on phone each. I'm going to let you out. 2 phones, 2 minutes. I'd like you to come back in your cell. Yeah, job done. The lads and lasses out here don't want you to come out for a phone call. So just, you know, I'm giving you what you were promised. Just do that. And they did. They come out, no mither, 2 minutes each, looked at me. That's it. Thank you. Back in the cell. Thank me. Job done.
Happy ending.
For the next half an hour, I had everyone who worked on that wing while we were waiting for the meals to come and serve meals, giving it that one. Soft ass, Yorkshire twat, Yorkshire dickhead, soft ass, pussy, all this. Do you know what I mean?
To your face?
Yeah, of course they were. It's what we say in Yorkshire, watter off a duck's back. It meant nothing to me. I was laughing at them. Do you know what I mean? People used to say it all the time, you're a soft ass Yorkshire get, and I go, thanks. You know, big smile on my face. Used to wind them up. Yeah. But it's about doing what's right. And that SO, give that job to me because he knew I'd do it.
That is so backwards that your peers at the time, and it sounds like at least one of your your one supervisor is the one who gave you the order to go ahead, but yeah, it's just so backwards how your coworkers at the time were, you know, just kind of denigrating you for doing that.
You know, there's a lot of piss taking and dark humor as well in the prison service. You know, I weren't offended. And yeah, like I say, it used to wind people up when I used to laugh.
Oh, okay. So it was teasing more so, would you say? Or
no. They would probably have liked it to hurt my feelings. However, yeah. As you can probably imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine, Sam. And I can only imagine. And thanks for painting this clear picture of these stories for us, because people do enjoy it. And we have people tuned in from not only the UK and the US, but Australia as well. We had a viewer tuning in from the middle of the night over there.
What I do want to add, Mr. Addy Ads, on that front, yeah, I've talked about this with other people, yeah. You know, there's good and bad prisoners, good and bad officers. And 50% of the officers I worked with weren't bad. Yeah. There were some bullies, there were some lazy staff and things like that, but it weren't 50%. It was a lot less than that. But I always say this, let's just say 50% are bad, yeah? So the bullies or lazy or don't do the job and make it harder. That still leaves 50% of the staff who are good and try and do a good job and talk to people properly and try and people with some dignity and respect and look after other staff. Do you know what I mean? You know, quite often it's really, there is a lot of negativity. You know, it's not a positive job, is it? You know, 1,200 prisoners in Strangeways who don't want to be there, and maybe 350 staff equally who might, you know, prefer to be somewhere else. So it's a negative environment. But there were a lot of decent people. And like you say, I look like a classic screw, 6'17", stone bald head. I work with people who were tiny. Tiny. I'm going to tell you a little story there. When I was at Forest Bank, again, just before I left this, I was on F-Wing, and there was a lad who in the morning we'd had to restrain. He'd assaulted another prisoner quite badly. But the segregation unit, which is like the block or solitary, was full. So this lad went from F wing and came back to F wing because nobody wanted him in the jail. So in the afternoon, we used to let people off the ring for work. So the lass I was working with, Lisa, she was at the end of the wing where the gate was, ticking people off for work. Now, Lisa was what I call jockey weight. Do you know what that means?
Jockey weight, you mean like a horse jockey? So she was very petite?
Very petite and tiny. She was a lesbian. The reason I'm telling you that is because she was pretty. She looked like a lesbian, yeah? And the reason I'm telling you that is because it was obvious her sexuality, and prisoners sometimes would take the piss. She was only 21, but she could hold her own. You know, they'd be ribbing her and that, and she could hold her own. She was a good officer, very young, very pretty, and jockey weight. So this lad I had restrained, yeah, I'm arguing with him face to face, like me and you are talking now. His mate come behind me with a towel, threw it round my neck, grabbed it, and started choking me out. The lad who I'd had the altercation with and restrained is then punching and kicking me. So I've got a hand up like this, up the side, panicking, because you think you're going to pass out. You know, he's choking me out, and this guy's punching me. So Lisa, one of the prisoners, alerted her. She pressed an alarm bell, ran down the landing. I've already told you she's jockey weight. This lad who were punching and kicking me, she wrapped herself around one of his legs, literally just grabbed hold of him best she could, yeah. And he was quite a big lad. And then maybe 30 seconds, the troop arrives, troops, you know, other officers on.
The cavalry.
Both these lads were restrained. She was in shock quite badly. You know, I'd got like burns around my neck sort of thing. You know, it's been quite a panicky thing. Someone's choking you out. You know, there's reason fighters tap when someone's choking them out. It makes you panic. I remember seeing her a couple of days later, and I, you know, thanked her like, because at that time, whatever, I don't know whether she went home or whatever, and I had to do paperwork. Some other staff come on the wing, but I didn't see her for a few days. And I says, "How are you?" You know, thanked her and that, give her a big hug, and her legs. Well, in fact, her arms, you could see it on her arms. She got some bruises, some really bad. Her legs were black and blue, mate. Because basically she clung on to this lad.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there is people in there who look nothing like me, who try and do a job, and that was, you know, it was something else. And she was jockey weight, she was pretty lass, but she could hold her own. So,
wow.
So like I say, there is good people.
Crazy.
Another thing, while we're on the subject of good people, deaths in custody is horrendous. If you've got a loved one who dies in prison, you know, I can't imagine how that's going to make you feel. But prison officers save lives, you know. When there's enough staff and you're doing your job, when I was there, you're sorting bullies out. They save people who drug overdosed, cut plenty of people down who were trying to hang themselves, people who were, you know, trying to self-harm, things like this. When I was on the healthcare, I can't even remember, you know, people who cut their throats and things like this. So they do save lives. There are prison officers who are proactive, you know, who will deal with bullies and look out for people and things like this. But the only thing that ever comes across in the press is the sort of negativity and that. So that's something to bear in mind, that, you know, if half were bad, which they're not, it's less than that. You know, there is still a lot of people in that job who are really good. And there is good managers and good governors. So
that's good, Sam. But you would say they're in the minority, or
no? It's difficult now. The stress levels in the prison service now must be going through the roof.
Yeah.
Not just with the virus, with the lack of staff. The most stressful times, when we were on K-Wing, we had a good relationship, the dynamic security with prisoners. But the times that were really stressful were when we were short-staffed in the summer, and you couldn't get prisoners out because you didn't have enough staff. The easiest thing, and I keep saying this over and over again, as a prison officer, was to stand on a landing, chatting to my mate, maybe a brew, watching prisoners go about their business. You'd see what were going on. You'd see if people were getting bullied, someone was down, somebody was up to no good. You could see it. You were people watching all the time, and that was the easiest job. Having people out, and that's what they need to get back to. They need to build relationships up, and they need enough staff so they can get prisoners out. And purposeful activity, very little. You need to sort of. I remember getting not into an argument. Somebody again on Twitter was on about education and about some comment I made, about not necessarily being able to educate the people who need educating. And they were like, what do you mean by that? I said, if you've got a lad from Salford, which is a city in Manchester, who can't read and write and would benefit from being able to learn to read and write, you can offer it to him, but more often than not, they'll turn it down. They don't want to go to education. So providing education for prisoners is all well and good, but probably the ones that need it aren't necessarily going to take up that offer. So you've got that challenge. Whereas if you said to him, I'm going to give you a trade, I'm going to teach you how to lay bricks or put plaster on walls or to be a builder, then they might go along with that. That might be something. But there didn't used to be much purposeful activity, and there's very little now. And again, people get offended by that. There isn't. You're not rehabilitating people and giving them quality time or anything like that. There's no reason why you couldn't.
Why would people get offended by that, Sam?
People do, because people will be working in education, and certain reform groups and that will be looking to try and push education and things like this, and then they get offended when you tell them that, well, actually, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't necessarily make them drink. It's that sort of thing. So providing good coursework or a good system of education doesn't mean people are going to take it up. You need to meet the requirements or what people are looking for in prison. When I was at Strangeways, 2 of the workshops, these are places where you send people during the day and they get paid. So they go in the morning, go in the afternoon. 2 of the best attended were a bricky shop where you learn to lay bricks, and there was a plastering shop where you learn to plaster. Now, a plasterer can earn 500, 600, 700 quid a week, as can a bricky. That is a useful qualification. They were well attended, them courses. Lads would turn up and lads would be able to go away with a skill and get a job where they could earn money. Both them shops were shut. The workshops got shut for office space, for interviewing space. So you got 2 quality, you were giving some people there something that they could go away with and earn good money, and it was sort of taken away for office space. So, it's like rehabilitation. That's another big one. People get upset about rehabilitation. You're not changing anyone in prison. It might change their outlook on life. If they might look up to some staff, or they might get fed up with it or whatever. And people can change. I've never said that people can't change, but prison don't rehabilitate them. You're not giving them anything. You're not doing anything with them. You can do these courses in the prison service. They call them programs where you deliver a course to someone. Don't stop people being violent or not committing domestic violence, or stop them going out and robbing or committing sex offences against kids. No course is going to do that. So that's something else that people get upset about. You know, when you say that you can put every prisoner on this course, it's not necessarily going to help them in life or stop them going back to the criminality.
So you're saying, Sam, although that is a good option for some prisoners, a better option would be to have, well, more options basically, and have those kind of guilds or training apprenticeships for the prisoners as well.
There is a few small companies out there now who are working to get prisoners employed to move away from the ex-prisoner, ex-offender type thing. There's one company that's really good called Timpson's. Yeah, used to have shoe shops. I don't know whether they've still got them, but what they do now, they have them in supermarkets like Walmart, and they cut keys so you can get your house keys recut and resold shoes. And Timpson,
like a cobbler.
Yeah, like a cobbler. They've got a fantastic record of employing ex-prisoners and training them and putting them in employment without bias, which is fantastic. But it's very difficult to get people into employment. There is small groups out there doing fantastic jobs, you know, working maybe with a local prison. So as people are coming out, like people try and get them housing, people are trying to get them job as well.
Yeah, I think that would go the furthest, to be honest with you, Sam. I mean, you're the expert on this, but from what I've read and what
I'm not
an
expert, Mr. Adiad. I'm no expert on anything.
You're too humble, Sam. But I think just in terms of fulfilling that need for purpose and self-actualization, I think would fill a lot of holes for these people.
You just said it, Mr. Adiads. I like saying that. It's got a ring. Purpose, yeah? What they need is purpose. Let me give you something you might find quite, well, I don't know, you might not, quite shocking. We're not talking about morality or anything here. The fact is that alcoholics and drug addicts can get a benefit in this country, like a disability benefit, yeah, and they could possibly per month get between 1,500, we'll do it in dollars, between £1,500 and £2,000, so maybe $1,700 to $2,300 a month cash, because they're classed as disabled, being an alcoholic or a drug addict. Yeah,
in the United Kingdom you can do this.
Yeah, that's more than I used to earn as a prison officer. So that for me absurd. See, for me, giving them that money, you're not helping them. What I would like to see them do is turn up somewhere 40 hours a week, have to get up, turn up and do something purposeful, help the community, you know, train them to be gardeners, go to old people's home, do the gardening, do some painting, paint fences, anything, clean parks, pick up litter. Just give them something worthwhile to do, other than giving them a big chunk of money that'll probably go, you know, straight into the supermarket buying alcohol or spend on drugs. They need, you know, a sense of worth and purpose, people. And without that, they also need that ability. They've got the money coming in. Other prisoners need the ability to be able to earn. If you can know, go on.
I was just going to say that's state-sanctioned addiction, basically. It's state-sponsored addiction, the fact that they do that.
You could look at it like that. It's not a good, for me, you see, if you were an addict, yeah, and I was the government and you had somewhere to live, I would pay your rent. You wouldn't see that cash. I would pay your rent. I would pay your bills, your utilities. I'd give you a travel pass if you needed one. And I would give you food stamps that couldn't be spent on anything other than food. So that way you've got a roof over your head, you know, you've got heating and you've got food. And anything else you would have to earn. You know, I'd want something from you. And that, you know, that sense of purpose, I'm sure that'd give people some worth, because that's what they need.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need to come out of prison and just carry on where they were. That does nobody any good. So,
Yeah, well put, Sam. And this is definitely something we can and should talk about more because it's such a fundamental aspect of the problem of prison reform is finding a purpose for prisoners during and after their incarceration. But we are at a little over an hour now, Sam, on Across the Pond. So
yep.
let's wrap up and chat again soon if you would be open to that.
What we on Sunday?
Today is Sunday morning in the West Coast. It is the 19th of April, 2020. Been on lockdown for a month now.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, let's do Wednesday. Have a bit of an update. And then if you want to carry on with the chat, you know, do your own work. We still got to come back to Reiki at some point. That'll be an interesting chat.
Definitely.
I've got a lot of things around that. And we'll just keep going, mate. I enjoy the chats. It's good, you know, just being able to talk to somebody else, because some of these things sometimes just go round and round in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's. I mean, I enjoy it too, Sam. I think it's great for both of us in several ways. And I mean, just being a minority in the U.S. too, you're not really programmed to have trust for any authorities. Based on the culture and society at large, especially, and this is coming from someone who is not Black, which it's obviously worse for somebody who's Black, but Latinos as well. So I think it's good to open up channels of communication
Definitely, mate.
like this. So thank you to everyone for tuning in from all over the world. We will be chatting again with Sam on Wednesday, talking more about his book, more about prison reform, his experiences in prison. Sam had a
Reiki at some point.
So yeah, we'll get some Reiki, some Japanese Reiki in the conversational palette as well. And some more crazy stories from Sam. If you're just tuning in, I would highly encourage you to listen to the story that Sam shared today. It was scary. It was exciting. It was really, really great. And we do appreciate it, Sam. But until Wednesday, have a good night, Sam.
Stay safe, dude. Salty and frosty.